Welcome to Today in History, your daily AI podcast. Here, you'll discover what made this day special, from famous events and breakthroughs to the birthdays and passing anniversaries of legendary figures. So, let's check in and travel back through time one day at a time.
You asked us to really zoom in on just one day, October 12th, and honestly, what we found isn't just a date on the calendar. It's more like this recurring historical hotspot, a day that somehow manages to birth major institutions and, well, execute coups almost simultaneously.
It really is quite a day, a phenomenal nexus, as you say. When we started digging into the sources, looking at the broad scope of the English Wikipedia, but also the more regional focus from the Urdu Wikipedia, it became clear just how differently the world remembers this day. October 12th, the 285th day of the year.
Or 286th in leap years, right?
Exactly. In this deep dive, it's essentially a crash course in sudden power shifts, the end of ancient eras, and these really conflicting cultural memories, all crammed into just 24 hours.
So our mission today is to unpack these, let's call them historical earthquakes. Find the connections, sometimes really surprising ones, between, say, a Persian conquest thousands of years ago and a modern marathon record, and try to understand how one single date can mean celebration in Madrid, but resistance in Caracas.
Let's dive in. Maybe we should start where the sources often do, the deep past. Because October 12th seems to have been setting the stage for these huge empire-ending moments for a very long time.
We're talking really ancient history here, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. The standout event has to be 539 BC, according to the Julian calendar anyway. This is the day the army of Cyrus the Great of Persia marches into Babylon and conquers it.
Okay, so a major military victory.
Well, yes, but more than that. This was effectively the end of the Babylonian Empire, a powerhouse that had defined the ancient Near East for ages. Gone. Just like that, on October 12th, a whole world order vanishes.
Wow. That definitely sets a precedent for geopolitical drama on this date. And then, almost 12 centuries later, 633 AD, we see another big shakeup.
That's right, the Battle of Hatfield Chase. King Edwin of Northumbria is defeated and killed. It fundamentally reshaped the early political landscape of Anglo-Saxon England, another power structure broken on October 12th.
So this date has, like, a millennium-long track record of radical political change. But I guess for most people, globally, October 12th means one thing above all.
1492, the Age of Discovery.
The moment that really drew a line between the ancient world and the modern one. Christopher Columbus's first expedition makes landfall in the Caribbean. I found it interesting, actually, that both the English and Urdu sources specifically mention the ship Pinta sighting land first, near San Salvador Island. Why highlight that specific ship? Seems like a small detail.
Doesn't it? But maybe because history sometimes grabs onto those small, concrete details to represent something massive, almost too big to grasp otherwise. That signal from the Pinta, well, it instantly changed the fate of continents.
It's the symbolic starting gun, isn't it?
Precisely. For arguably the biggest global shift in human history, and its ripples spread everywhere. Interestingly, just a couple of centuries earlier, on this exact same date, 1279, halfway across the world in Japan, the Nichiren Shishu branch of Buddhism was founded. Different worlds, same calendar date marking significant beginnings.
So if the Age of Discovery blew open new frontiers, the following centuries on October 12th seem to be about, maybe, establishing control, building structures, social ones, military safety, even naming conventions for governments.
Yeah, building things up, but not without some major setbacks and shocking catastrophes, like take 1654 in the Netherlands, Delft.
The Delft explosion, I read about that. Terrible.
Absolutely horrific. A huge gunpowder depot just went up. Killed over 100 people, devastated the city. But it also forced the Dutch government to completely rethink urban planning, storage of dangerous materials, safety standards. A brutal lesson, really, written in rubble.
It's fascinating how, around the same time, October 12th captures these moments of institution building in the growing American colonies, like in 1692, when the Salem witch trials were officially ended.
Right, Governor Fix's letter. It's a moment where, official authority finally pushed back against that mass hysteria, a step towards maybe a more rational legal process.
And you see that same drive towards building social infrastructure later on. 1773, America's first official insane asylum opens.
Foundational moments, absolutely. For social care, for mental health treatment, however basic or even problematic those early institutions were by today's standards, they were starting points.
And even for higher education. 1793, the cornerstone for Old East is laid at UNC Chapel Hill. That's the oldest state university building in the U.S., right?
It is. So you've got law, social care, education, all having these foundational moments marked on October 12th.
But it wasn't all serious institution building, was it? I saw something about parachuting.
Yes. It's a great counterpoint. You jump from the gravity of the Salem trials ending to pure pioneering adventure. 1799, Jean Genevieve Labroche, she becomes the first woman to successfully jump from a balloon with a parachute. Talk about extreme sports before they were even a thing.
That's incredible. And speaking of firsts, and maybe shifting from daredevils to festivals, 1810.
Oktoberfest, the very first one, held by the citizens of Munich to celebrate the wedding of Crown Prince Louis of Bavaria. It's amazing, isn't it? The sheer range, empire-ending battles, university foundations, and the birth of arguably the world's most famous beer festival, all on October 12th.
It really covers the spectrum. And then to cap off that era, something maybe quieter but significant, naming the White House.
Yes, 1901. Seems simple, but President Theodore Roosevelt officially renaming the executive mansion to the White House.
Yeah.
It really cemented the identity, the brand almost, of the center of American power, just as the country was stepping onto the world stage in a much bigger way in the 20th century.
Right, establishing that stable identity just before the 20th century brought a whole new level of global instability and conflict to this date.
Exactly. That stability feels almost like the calm before the storm, because then you hit World War I, 1915, the execution of Edith Cavell.
The British nurse.
Yes, executed by a German firing squad. Her crime. Helping hundreds of Allied soldiers escape occupied Belgium. Her death became this huge international symbol of German brutality in the war, but also of incredible courage and sacrifice. A major WWI tragedy marked on this date.
And the date keeps showing up in the World War eras. 1944, the Axis occupation of Athens ends.
A moment of liberation, and then the very next year, 1945, a different kind of wartime story, Desmond Doss. He becomes the first conscientious objector to receive the U.S. Medal of Honor.
Wow. So you have Cavell's execution for her actions and Doss being honored for courage under very different moral principles.
It shows the complexity of courage and conflict, doesn't it? Both recognized in vastly different ways around October 12th. Then the Cold War kicks in, and the date marks technological milestones, too.
Like the space race.
Definitely. 1964, the Soviet Union launches Voskhod 1. Now, this was a big deal. Not just the first spacecraft with more than one person.
A multi-person crew, right.
Yes, but crucially, it was the first flight where the crew didn't wear pressure suits. A massive gamble, a huge technological leap, really pushing the boundaries, driven entirely by that intense U.S.-Soviet rivalry.
Okay, that brings us closer to modern times and to a really striking day of political upheaval in 1999. It seems like things just broke apart in different places at once.
They really did. October 12th, 1999 was quite the day for political fractures. You had General Pervez Musharraf launching a bloodless coup in Pakistan. He overthrew the elected Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
And that's significant because both our sources highlighted it.
Exactly. The fact that this specific coup is flagged as a key event in both the English and the Urdu sources tells you just how impactful it was, regionally and probably globally. It was a major, undeniable power shift.
And yet, on the exact same day, somewhere else.
On the very same day, the former Soviet Republic of Abkhazia declares its independence from Georgia. So you have one country undergoing a swift military takeover, another declaring its separation. October 12th, 1999 was fundamentally about nations being pulled apart or dramatically reconfigured.
Unfortunately, the turn of the millennium seems to add modern terrorism to this date's already heavy history.
Tragically, yes. In 2000, you have the attack on the USS Cole. The U.S. Navy destroyer was badly damaged in Yemen by al-Qaeda suicide bombers. 17 American sailors were killed, a direct hit on a military target.
And then, just 2 years later, the focus shifts dramatically. 2002, Delhi.
The Kuta nightclub bombings, utterly devastating. Bombs detonated in packed tourist spots. 202 people killed, mostly young foreign tourists, but also many Indonesians. Our source specifically calls it the deadliest terrorist act in Indonesian history. It shows how quickly this date can swing from, say, institution building centuries ago to just shattering violence in the modern era.
We should probably also mention natural disasters, as they don't follow any human calendar logic, but they still land on these dates.
That's a fair point. Nature's power isn't different. In 1992, before those terror attacks, a major earthquake hit Cairo, Egypt, a 5.8 magnitude quake. killed at least 510 people. A reminder of the other forces that shape our world on any given day.
But history isn't only about loss or conflict. October 12th also captures some pretty incredible modern achievements too, right?
Absolutely. Amidst all the conflict and disaster narratives associated with the date, 2012 brings this moment of, well, maybe hope, institutional collaboration rewarded. The European Union won the Nobel Peace Prize.
That's a significant counterpoint.
It really is. And then maybe the ultimate counterpoint in terms of human potential. 2019, Eliud Kipchoge.
Breaking the 2-hour marathon barrier.
Yes. Running a marathon in 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 40 seconds in Vienna. It was an assisted run, not for official records, but still, physically breaking a barrier many thought impossible. It's just amazing. You go from the fall of Babylon on this date to someone pushing the absolute limits of human physiology thousands of years later.
It really underscores the sheer range. Speaking of humans pushing limits or just, well, living their lives, let's touch on the people connected to this date. The births and deaths on October 12th paint a pretty diverse picture, too.
They really do. Look at leaders. You've got King Edward VI of England, born way back in 1537, and then, born on the same date in 1866, Ramsay MacDonald, who became the UK's first ever Labour Prime Minister.
That's quite a contrast right there, hereditary monarchy and the rise of modern democratic socialism.
Exactly. And then in arts and culture.
Wow.
Eugenio Montale, the Italian Nobel laureate for literature, Luciano Pavarotti, the opera megastar, and Hugh Jackman, modern Hollywood icon. That's quite the eclectic mix of talent born on one day.
It really is. And our Urdu source added another important name.
Yes, and this is crucial for that multi-layered view we talked about. It highlights the birth of Nida Fazli in 1938, a very famous and respected Urdu poet, film lyricist, dialogue writer. His inclusion reminds us that cultural significance is regional too. For millions in South Asia, his birthday might resonate more strongly than, say, a British PM's.
That's a really important point. Now, flipping over to the deaths on October 12th, we see some historical heavyweights.
We do. General Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, died on this day in 1870. Anatole France, another Nobel Literature laureate, in 1924. And of course, Edith Cavell, whose execution we already discussed, in 1915. Her death date is as significant as her life's work.
And more recently.
More recently, 1999 saw the death of basketball legend Wilt Chamberlain. But perhaps more profoundly in terms of social impact, 1998 marks the tragic death of Matthew Shepard.
The young man murdered in Wyoming.
Yes. His death became this incredibly powerful catalyst. It really galvanized national conversations and eventually led to significant changes in hate crime legislation regarding LGBTQ plus rights. A truly heartbreaking event with lasting repercussions.
And then a death in 2011 that probably went unnoticed by many, but was huge for, well, almost everyone listening.
Dennis Ritchie, absolutely. The computer scientist who created the C programming language.
Which is basically everywhere.
It's foundational. Think operating systems like Windows, Linux, macOS, countless applications. So much of the digital world we inhabit rests on the bedrock he built with C, and also his work on Unix. His passing was a monumental, if quiet, loss for the entire technological infrastructure of our age. And again, the Urdu source adds Mustafa Zaidi, a renowned Nazm poet who died in 1970, anchoring cultural memory in that region.
So we've seen the sheer scale of events crammed into this one date. Fall of empires, births of nations, acts of terror, moments of incredible achievement. But maybe the most compelling part, the part that really brings it all together, is how that single event from 1492 is remembered or challenged around the world today.
This is where it gets really fascinating, and I think it's the key takeaway for you. For anyone trying to understand history, historical memory isn't fixed, it's actively contested. Look at how October 12th is observed. In the U.S., parts of it anyway, and Honduras, it's still celebrated as Columbus Day.
Right, and in Spain.
In Spain, it's huge. It's their national day, Dia de la Hispanidad. It's also Armed Forces Day, a massive celebration of Spanish identity, history, military pride, very much centered on the legacy of exploration and empire. It's also Dia de las Americas in Belize.
Okay, so that's one side. But then you cross the Atlantic, particularly into parts of South America.
And the narrative just completely flips. The exact same historical event, the 1492 arrival, is framed entirely differently. In Venezuela, October 12th is officially Dia de la Resistencia Indígena, the Day of Indigenous Resistance.
Explicitly pushing back against the colonial narrative.
Explicitly. And similarly, Argentina calls it Dia del Respeto a la Diversidad Cultural, Day of Respect for Cultural Diversity. It's nations acknowledging the trauma, the complexity, the enduring legacy for indigenous populations, not just celebrating the European arrival. It shows a real evolution in national self-awareness for some countries.
So the same date holds completely opposite meanings depending on where you stand.
Precisely. And beyond that whole contested legacy of 1492, there's this weird, wonderful mix of other things happening on October 12th. Equatorial Guinea celebrates its Independence Day, independence from Spain, ironically enough achieved in 1968.
And you have cultural celebrations, too.
Yes, Hafez Day in Iran, celebrating their revered poet. And then, jumping to the thoroughly modern, the International Day against DRM digital rights management, fighting for digital freedoms.
Wow. Ancient poets and digital rights activism on the same day.
And maybe strangest of all, the Catholic Church now has a feast day on October 12th for Carlo Acutis, an Italian teenager, a computer programmer actually, known for his depth faith and using the internet for evangelization. He's on the path to sainthood. So yeah, ancient empires, coups, programmers, poets, saints, resistance days. October 12th truly has it all.
This has been quite the journey through just one day. We started with Babylon falling and ended up with marathon records and digital saints. We saw America's foundational institutions being built, the White House getting its name, a nurse executed for heroism, terror attacks, reshaping security. It seems October 12th is really defined by these dramatic, often sudden transitions and deeply contested memories.
And by pulling together these different strands, the political focus may be highlighted more in the Urdu source, the broader cultural sweep in the English one, those completely conflicting holiday names, you get that much richer, more nuanced understanding. History isn't just a neat timeline you memorize. It's this ongoing debate about meaning.
What really strikes me is the speed we've seen today. Events like the legacy of 1492 took centuries to play out, and we're still debating them. But then you have things like Kipchoge's run or Musharraf's coup, events that happened, boom, in just hours, yet instantly change things.
Which leads to, I think, the final provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive. Considering that incredible range, centuries-long consequences versus hours-long events, which are the things happening today, on any October 12th, which current headlines will historians centuries from now look back on as those monumental before and after moments. With seemingly small detail right now, maybe a technological breakthrough we barely notice, or a political shift in a region we're not watching closely, what's quietly setting the stage for a future history we can't even begin to imagine yet.
That's all for today's episode of Today in History. Thanks for listening. Join us again tomorrow to uncover more moments that shaped our world. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, and make history in your own way.